With you, with you,
That's right. A lot of women today, they don't appreciate
Playboy.
Hello? Hello, you on?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're on.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, what's going on, James?
No, not a whole lot, man. Just starting the show. Doesn't look like
Hello?
we have anyone joining us just yet. Did you tell your friends to join and watch the show?
What, I gotta send out that link that you just gave me?
You know what? I'm gonna send you. What do you think? People are gonna look at it on YouTube or Facebook? What do you think?
I don't know. YouTube. How you look at it?
Here, this is. I'm sending you the YouTube link right there. Looks like we have one person on Facebook. But yeah, send it out. Get folks to jump in. YouTube is broadcasting live right now to that link I just sent you into your Skype. So you can send it, and people can comment. They can join in. They can Skype in if you want to send that out, and people want to Skype in and join the conversation. They can do that. So there's a couple different ways. Did you get that link I sent you? In the Skype.
That's right. A lot of women today, they don't appreciate it.
And then here is a link to my Facebook. So I'm broadcasting live on Facebook right now as well. So for those just now tuning in, we are broadcasting from Jacksonville. I've got Bo Manning on the line here, Skyped in. If you want to Skype in, just let me know, and I can send you the Skype link, and we can all converse. So this whole show is about just connecting people, talking about all sorts of shit, man. We're just talking shit. So let me see here. That's a sweet, goofy picture.
On your
on that. Let me. What was that?
Put the link on your page on Facebook.
Yeah, I sent a link. That's my Facebook page, and I'm broadcasting right now on Facebook. So you can share it on your Facebook too if you want. There we go. So can you see me now through Skype? I don't see you. Are you on video?
Can I see you?
Yeah. Well. Here we are. We're on another episode. So as you're sending that out, letting people know to join in, So what's been what's been on your mind? Well, tell the folks. So we do have a couple people that tune in pretty regularly to the show. So tell the current and the future audience a little bit about yourself and sort of I don't know at the beginning and come all the way to now.
Um, how they doing? My name is Bo Man. You can call me J Man. Either one of the two. I'm really appreciative of James letting me join. The podcast. I actually work in music, and as far as the music, it's producing, promoting, um, entrepreneurship. You know, working from the ground up. That's how it all started. The name of the record label is So Fly So Long Records. You can Google it, YouTube it, Facebook it. It's everywhere. I met my man James at how can I put it? It was a kind of like a rap fest that night. Everybody was rapping and freestyling and everything. And James being James, he was up there just doing his thing, freestyling, and we linked up that night and the friendship similar to now. He was telling me about this nice podcast that he got going on and telling me I come on and check it out. And, a couple other things about myself. I'm just a person dedicated to, helping out the folks who really want to be helped, the ones who need help, if you can understand that. But definitely with So Far So Gone Records, like we done did a lot of things, planning on doing a lot of more things. I work with a lot of talented artists and managers and models and all type of stuff like that. Just a whole community of people. We're trying to grow it. Hopefully it gets bigger and bigger. Well, that's a little bit about J Man or Bo Man, either one. Doesn't matter.
So, are you originally are you from Jacksonville? Did you grow up in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I am actually from Jacksonville, born and raised. Just found out recently, about a year ago, about my family having roots in Georgia, but I born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I grew up in what some people would call like uh, I guess you could say ghettos or things like that. I was just I could say I was around poverty. I didn't really consider it like that. Life is really what you make it to me, and at that time, I felt like my life was amazing, even though I stayed in the what people would call a poverty area. But yeah, Jacksonville, born and raised, mostly the north side, but I don't stay on you know the west side, the south side, everywhere but really like the east side. No, I actually did stay on the east side for like a little while, but I'm pretty familiar with Jacksonville. I pretty much know all the ins and outs and things like that. So 31 years here, and I can say I really got love for Jacksonville.
So, what got you like what made you sort of get into the music business?
Um, what made me get into the music business was um me and my brother are about 2 years apart. He was about 17, getting ready to be 18. I was about 19. No, really, I probably was like 18. I remember being in high school. I was a senior. He was an 11th grader, and I remember being in the cafeteria one day. I was like, uh, I was like a real popular guy. He was popular too, but I was, like I didn't have to stay at school all day and little things like that. And one day I ended up staying. I was in the cafeteria, and like these dudes used to always be beating on beating on the cafeteria table, and they'll be rapping and stuff. And like a lot of times, I never really paid attention. I never really felt like, a lot of people was just like they was just rhyming that hard like that. And I remember my brother like tapping me, and he was telling me like, he was like, "Bro, I'll be back. I'm finna walk over here real quick." And like he did it so smooth. He walked over there, and all I remember hearing was like everybody just like ooh and ah and like yeah, you know what I'm saying. He was over there doing his thing, just rhyming, and right then and there, I kind of seen like, I was like now, people really kind of vibing to this, and then probably like a couple of months later. I remember Lil Wayne at that time. He was dropping so much music, like he was dropping. That's before he dropped. I think he had. I think he was dropping like a lot of like, um, a lot of mixtapes. Because everybody was looking forward to him dropping the Carter 3, but he was just dropping a lot of mixtapes and stuff, and my brother was just like taking off on like every beat Lil Wayne had at that time, and then I'm looking at myself. I'm like, damn. I'm like he's sliding. I'm like he really on like par with what like Lil Wayne doing. Like he really like bar for bar. I'm talking about he just giving it to me off the top of the dome, freestyling and everything. And at that time, I had just signed up for FSCJ Community College. I was getting ready to play basketball. That's what I really want to do, is play basketball. And like he just kept getting raw and raw. And like I had a homeboy. I remember like the first like the first name I came up with for like a record label was like New Era Entertainment. And I was like, nah, that ain't gonna stick. I was like, because like the New Era hats was big then. Like, nah, that ain't gonna stick. I'm like, I gotta come up with something else. And like, like just off of his energy, I just was telling him, I was like, shit, I like, bro, I like what you doing, and like, I really kind of empowered him more to actually like take it serious. But that, what I'm saying, just off of like that energy, like that's what really made me get into it. And then I mean I could take it like farther back than that because of like how like all the what I'm saying, roots and everything connected, what I'm saying, to branch out to make this big tree, so but that's kind of like the energy that kind of made me start, really like pursuing it. And then just think about everything out the top of the dome, just record label name, and where I go at for studio time, and how to get him in the studio, and where I get beats, what I do, so it just was like very intriguing at that time. I was full of energy. I just getting them in the showcase and stuff like that. Like that's really what kind of fueled me to do it.
That's what's up. And now you're sort of in the thick of things. What are some?
Yeah.
I mean, this might be in like an obvious question, especially to people that are into the music scene right now, that are grinding and trying to put their own, make their own name. Like, what are some of the big challenges that are you're facing right now, as sort of like, what are the challenges you're facing through So Fly So Gone right now, trying to make things work? And what are some of the wins that you've seen happen?
Um, I say challenges I'm facing is kind of like it's really like a in or out thing. You got one foot in, one foot out. You really want to have both feet in, no feet out. That's kind of like the biggest challenge. Because
Are you talking
things
about
come,
yourself, as
huh?
far as yourself and what you can dedicate to what you got going on, that kind of thing?
Um,
Or are you talking about people on the team, or both, or like, what do you mean?
I mean, all that comes into like the same shell. Cause as far as being a person, like with you actually putting in the work, it's kind of different when like you're actually not the rapper. Like when you're not the rapper, the majority of people always be like, okay, what do you do? Or you know what I'm saying? Like, what's your role and stuff like that. And, I used to wrestle with that a lot. I used to be okay, I started a label, our own label, but then it was more of like, when a person come ask you that, like you actually saying, like, I do everything. Like, I don't care if I gotta hold a bag at a show, be the hype man, you know, um, like make my own CDs or, put stuff on the internet. Like it's not no one thing that you do. It's really more like an everything. Now I don't know as far as like if you were signed to somebody and then they appoint people to do this type of stuff, but I just always had to be a jack of all trades, like everything except for like actually rapping on the microphone. So that's kind of like a big challenge because as you get older, like you can see the finish line, but it's just all about just, the hardest part is just really just, you know, reinventing yourself, steady reinventing yourself. Like that's the biggest thing as far as challenge wise, because you want to keep, what I'm saying, blossoming with the times, you want to stay current, but you still want to keep that same fire of why you started, why you put the time in, what's the ultimate goal. So my biggest challenge now I would say is just strategizing and having everything, you know, um I mean just really having stuff where like it's not that much of a chaos, because it's still, like you gonna always have people saying like you could have did this more or you could have did that more. Like you can always do more. That's the biggest thing. Whether you feel like you done did everything, you can always do more. So like sometimes that's challenging, what I'm saying, just to realize like, what else can I do more, and it just it's just different, as like artists progress, what I'm saying, people who 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 are like behind the scenes, they actually progress. Like you want to pursue different things, but like I said, you always have to keep in mind, what was the ultimate goal at hand when you started, so that's challenging. Just, like I say, just being a part of the whole process. It's just like, that's just a very challenging thing.
Do you think people a lot of times, especially folks that aren't in the industry, like do you think they know what goes into creating artists and creating music and getting the exposure for those artists?
I mean, I don't really think they do, because I don't think they could even, fathom, the things that have to be done. It's just like somebody saying, um, a person could be, you know, um, what's a good example? A person could be like, uh, a coach, and you'll probably say to yourself, "Oh, well, all you gotta do is call out the plays and put this person in this position, and that's pretty much it." But they don't pay attention the to the time that you have to put into, being that person to help those other people. So from the outside in, like you'll have people, they just think like, okay, well, you get a hit song, you get a beat, you go to this, this person hits you up from Instagram, and they just think it's just that easy, But like I say, I was doing this when, Instagram was like just starting, people weren't even People weren't even on Instagram. Like Facebook was kind of big. Like I remember even before Facebook. Like I remember the MySpace days. As far as with putting out content. That's like the first place I ever put some music on.
Right.
So as far as the process, I don't think people understand, like the time and effort that goes into it. And as far as being a person on like the back end, you'll get to that point sometime where you feel like, you're not appreciated or like you're kind of overlooked because, you know, at that time you're not getting paid for it. Like you have some people out here who just okay, you want me to be your manager or you want me to do this? I need this amount of money for month, what I'm saying, this amount of money, this amount of money, and I always just been, with the people I dealt with, I wasn't, you know, it wasn't just about the money part. Like as far as with having studios and things like that, the time and effort that go into it, dealing with all these different kind of attitudes and, just, trying to, implement, you know, all these artistic things to the world, like it's just a very challenging task. And, no, I don't think people understand the time and the effort, the passion, everything that goes into making this thing work.
I mean, so like you mentioned before, the way what a coach's role is in like a team. And do you think people sort of understand and accept that the coach isn't the one actually handling the ball, isn't actually running the plays, and etc. And do they still accept that responsibility and validate that responsibility, or do you think people out there like sort of dismiss a coach's contributions? What do you think what's your perception on like how a lot of people that you've been running into feel about those kind of roles?
Um, it's kind of like I'd say it's kind of like a two-edged sword. You know what I'm saying? Like you get those certain people who really, you know, respect a person putting in the time and effort, and that'd be like, oh, that coach is this, that coach is a very, what I'm saying, person who actually, you know, like takes a team of, talented individuals or, whether they're not so talented individuals and actually turn them into playoff team, you could say. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with music, you know. Um it's more of a it's more of a like I say, it really just depends on the person. Some people respect the shooter, some people respect the person who's getting killed. It's just different. And I say that literally because it's just, like you never know who's that person who's actually looking at that situation. So it's just more of a, you could be the best coach in the world, and some people feel like, well, you didn't win the championship. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter how many people you empower, or how many people you help, what I'm saying, move to the next steps in their life. They just look at it from a standpoint of, did you win the championship? Which that is the ultimate goal. But, what I'm saying, the whole thing is like, did you have a successful season? Did you actually, like, did you really help the players? How many of your players from your team actually went to a Division 1 college, or like they're actually getting a paid, 4-year ride to go to that university? It's kind of like the same way with that. Like you can actually have been, helping somebody and prepping somebody, mainly for them. Some of those people might be going to deal with another person, and you being that person, you actually help them get to that person, or help them get ready to even be in that situation with that person. You know what I'm saying? So it's just more of a thing like that. But it all depends on the person. Some people respect it, some people don't. You know, it's just something you got to learn to live with.
Right. Right. Man, well, I appreciate you giving us some background and sort of some insight into your world and what's going on with you, as far as work and what your work, the thing projects you're working on. But this podcast is about talking about some of the more controversial, or just talking about social or political, any kind of shit that's just real shit. The big focus for me is to try to make this as interactive as possible. That's why I do live feeds. In fact, there's somebody that's joining us right now on Facebook. Thank you for joining. We had actually a bunch of people jumping in and out for a little while on Facebook. So I want to thank those guys for jumping in. And and please leave a comment if you have something on your mind, or if something resonates with you. Let us know, and hopefully we're not having any audio issues. Sometimes I never know with some of this equipment and things having audio problems. But anyway, part of the thing with the Boyd, and the saying that goes along the motto of the show is that the truth hurts. It's weakness leaving your mind. And really, the big charge that I try to put for this show is to just speak truth. That we're going to look at things in our reality in a real way. And sometimes that's sort of controversial and people get all weird about it. But that's part of the show. But what are some things that have been on your mind as far as I don't know, what's eating at you?
As far as me,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a lot of different stuff going on in the world, man. You just, you try to wrap your head around, all these events and things that's going on, and you try to pinpoint just one situation, but it's kind of hard because you'll be like, okay, well, this kind of disturbed me this week, but then you could go back 2 weeks ago and like, this was just as bad, so it's just more of it's like a big divide right now, I can say that.
A
It's
big
like a
divide.
real
What do
big
you mean a
divide
big
going on
divide?
right now.
Like, what can you sort of give some more details on? What do you mean, like, there's a big divide?
I mean, as far as with the whole landscape, it's like, um, you know, it's like it's just a big race thing going on. That's like the biggest thing. It's just like a big,
So a
you know,
racial divide?
yeah, definitely. It's just like a real racial vibe. But as far as when you're like out in the open and dealing with people, it seems like it seems like it's not like that, But as far as with like this television programming and things like that, like it's like really painting a picture that like this is the only thing that's going on. So that's why I'm saying it's like a big divide, but it's like you know, but it's only coming from you know like not saying it's just coming from the higher ups, but it's just that divide is being put out there. Like how you used to get a pack of dividers back in the days, and they were all different colors, and they have a different tab on them and things like that.
Yeah.
And you have them separated with like the same color paper though.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that, It's like a person took that divider, took it, separated the papers and everything, and when that divider, when those dividers were like just in that packing that they came in, there was no problem with them. Then people divided them and put them into a notebook, and they didn't want this person to be with that person to be with that person. It's kind of like that.
But so do you think that, does it feel new, or is this something that's always been going on? Because it
Um,
was even worse at some point in our country, right?
I, I mean, as far as me when I was young, I could say I didn't really, see it as bad as it is now. I didn't, you know. No, I mean, but we have a different government. We have a different president and things like that. As far as when I grew up, I didn't really see too much of that stuff going on. It's more of a like I was one of the ones coming from like the neighborhood, and I went to like a college preparatory school for like a year or two here and there. So it was kind of different at that time.
Mm.
You know, but it wasn't like a bad different. I ain't never really had nobody like disrespect me in my face or anything like that.
Is
The
that
teachers were
is that
kind of
something that you've had happen recently?
teachers were kind of weird, but it wasn't like as far as with like all the hate crimes and stuff going on, and like people getting killed in the church and things like that. I don't remember seeing a lot of that when I was young. Now, as far as before me, of course, you had Jim Crow and all that type of stuff. But as far as me in the '90s, like I remember seeing stuff on TV, certain riots and stuff like that. But for me, I didn't see a lot of that when I was young.
Mm. Well, has something happened sort of recently that brought it to light for you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can see it every day. You know, I mean, you can see it. You know, I mean, for like the last couple of years, like with the police killings and you know, um, all kind of different stuff with like the government. People being held as people being held in these little camps and everything like that, man, being tore away from their families and things like that. It's just a whole different landscape, man.
Mm. What do you think? What's driving it? You mentioned the president. Is there some what are some things that you feel like are going on with in that regard?
I mean, bad misrepresentation. People only, you know, people only putting out stuff from people of that party. Not even with it just being Democrat and like Republican. It's just all about basic human rights and things like that. That's the big thing that's like being like overlooked now. Like it's stuff happening to people that you know it wasn't happening before then. And then but then some stuff was happening and it's actually being brought to the light now. It's very different now. Everybody has camera phones and things like that. So a lot of stuff that wasn't being played and brought to the light, like you actually see it going on now. And some people think it's just happening, but it's actually been happening.
Right.
But as far as we like these mass killings and things like that, it's just you know that's just like when you look at the people who are actually doing it, and with the amounts of people getting killed, it's just ridiculous.
We've got some folks watching along with us on Facebook right now. And in fact, Alex Yonkers, what's up, Alex? Thanks for joining in and leaving a comment. Um, he says it's a hell of a lot easier to get news out when everyone is connected to one another. This allows negative news or even positive news to proliferate in today's day and age. I would say it has always been going on, but a background agenda, whereas now it is being pushed forth. So, sort of echoes some of the things that you said that on one hand this has been going on. On another hand, it's like we have more of the means to share our experiences. So now, instead of just bearing witness and giving my testimony, I can actually show you my camera phone and it will bear witness for me. And so now it's not like, oh, you're just making a story or whatever. It's like you have proof, and technology has advanced to a point where we all have that capacity to be these truth tellers. But on the other hand, someone is controlling the stream of information that we're actually able to see. You know what I mean? Like who controls your Facebook feed? You think you control it, but who really controls it? You know, your YouTube feed, the news. You know, someone, you know, they could say it's an algorithm. They could say whatever. But at the end of the day, someone is sort of, I've used this term, curating your perception. Like a curator in a museum sort of puts together a scene or a section to you know, to highlight a theme in whatever the museum's covering. And I feel like that there's only a few main media companies out there, and whoever's in control really gets to control what you end up seeing. And then what you end up seeing ends up shaping and crafting your reality. And it ends up being sort of weird. I think people are digging their heels in. And like you said, there's a divide. And now people are digging deeper and deeper in the divide. You know, I keep hearing more and more people openly talking about a civil war. Have you heard about people talking about that?
I can't really say for people saying those words, civil war. I mean, but you hear people all the time, you know. I mean, it's a lot of people that are just unjust right now. You know, like they're tired of you know seeing stuff happening, and you know, especially to certain communities. You know, like they're just tired of the same old, same old. You know, so it's getting to a point where you know the water is just boiling over, man. You know, because like I said, when you don't have respect for certain, you know, groups of people,
Like,
you
what
know.
would that even look like? What would a I mean, okay, so I have an idea based on sort of what, you know, because I follow along on different sort of right wing social media groups to see sort of like what the hell's going on in that world. And I'm still friends with some people, like connected with people on the right wing side of political things. And you know, they share amongst themselves different sort of ideas and philosophies. And if you look at comments and things like that, people feel a certain way. And so you can sort of gauge this idea of what they think civil war is going to be like. But I think there's a reality, and they think it's going to be like a bunch of, I don't know, like, you know, like these sort of, I don't know, like wussy kind of this thing that they don't want to be, if that makes any sense. This idea that people don't want to be associated. It's less about like this idea that people don't want to be like associated with certain like caricatures of who the other is. Like, for instance, in a lot of sort of right-wing circles, there's like this caricature of people who aren't like them as either being like thugs or gangsters, or they're like, I don't know, sort of butchy looking like white girls with blue hair and nose piercings that are like wearing hoodies and are feminists and whatever. And that's like, I'm not that. So whatever that isn't is whatever's the furthest from that is what I am. And you know, so I think some people get caught up in that because they just don't want to be associated with that, or they don't want to be associated with, I don't know, like a femi kind of guy image. They have these sort of images that are in their mind of where who they are, and they feel like if their politics or their philosophy in any way overlaps with people like that, that they can't be that. I don't know if that makes any sense. You know, so even if you agree with them on issues, if issue by issue, they'll still swing for their team, because there's no way in hell they're going to be on the same team as that butchy looking, you know, blue hair or pink hair, like college girl that's like wearing a black hoodie and, I don't know, chanting with Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, oh, there's no way I'm on that same team. Even if they agreed with you about healthcare or some other political shit. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like there's a culture war, and no matter what, some people are going to divide along that line. And it sort of makes me wonder, like, on one hand, too, the racists think it's going to be a race war. So, and I don't think that, I mean, I think that's pretty far-fetched. I think there might be a band of racist militias that suddenly find out that a lot of people have guns that they didn't think had guns. But what do you think is, like, when people do talk about this whole civil war, what is going to be the dividing line? What team will form? What teams, who's going to fight who in this future, this dystopian future? And what will that even be like? Will you still be able to drive down the road? Will you be able to, like a kid still going to school? You know,
I mean,
and like, what would that even be like?
I mean, it'll be total chaos, because there are so many guns. And, you know, everybody has them. You know, you could say this race would be against this race, or this race would be against that race, but then it's hard to say, because you got different, like you said, genders of people. You know, people who stand for this, people who stand for that. Then you got religions. Then you got, you know, then you got you just got you just got a lot of different sets of people, you know, and a lot of people stand for different things, you know. But as far as with being like if it was to be like a civil war, like, it would be all out chaos, because you have people who would be using guns who don't even really know how to use guns, never even been trained to use a gun. You know, then you got people going off of emotion. Then you got, you know, people who are on all kind of, you know, different substances and drugs and things like that. You know, it'd just be, you know, total chaos, because, I mean, we already don't have a structure in, like, you know, how the country's being run. So when you got people fearing for their life, you know, it's not going to be any structure on that. You know, like, you're going to have people who, you know, like, who will be doing it, you know, I mean, when you look at it from a standpoint of, like, poor, middle, and rich, you know, like, those classes that, like, actually separate, you know what I'm saying? Who's to say you couldn't have the poor, you know, like, hey, you know, they could want to go at the rich, you know, they could say,
do you think
you
the
know,
poor would be working together, get like
it could
outside of
happen.
race? Do you think there could be a class unification out there?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from all those different ways,
Those
because,
poor
you
white
know,
people, you
look
think
at
they're
it.
gonna be working like the ones that are like super Trump right now, or you think they'll turn around and be like, you know what? No, screw this. It's, you know, all of us together against these rich people.
But that's looking at it from, like, a racial standpoint. Even if you look at it from saying, okay, we'll separate, you know, if it be a civil war and they talking about, you know, from like classes of, you know, separation. When you look at the 1%, you know, and if you look at it from, like, a racial standpoint with, like, the 1%, you know, what's the majority? If you look at it from, like, 100% standpoint, you know, the majority of that race of the 1% would be what? You know, and then when you look at it from a standpoint of being, like, poor, or what they consider poor or like middle class and stuff like that. You'll have those same people
But
who
we have a
who've
time
been
right now
who
where
huh
we have a time right now where there's a whole group of people, mostly of a certain race, that defend the rich, even if they're poor. They defend the rich and say, well, they earned it, in any kind of anything against the rich would be against freedom. And so they
yeah,
have all
you
these
do
poor white
you
people that aren't going to join your team. They're going to
you
say you're
do
poor because it's your fault.
I mean, you're gonna always have it like that. That's the you'll have it. A lot of those people voted because of the "Make America Great Again" slogan. So like, you pretty much know what you're going to get from that. But if you're looking at it from a standpoint of like when they go to separating classes and it's all about chaos, if you talking about poor against poor or what they consider poor and middle against middle, eventually when they go to cancel each other out and they realize they don't have any of the necessities that I'm looking for, they're gonna go after who? Or like they're gonna think like, okay, the only people who have what I need to have, for me to keep living would be more of the top echelon people, like they have that stuff that you don't, because that'd be the only way that you be able to look at it if you're looking at it from like a classist standpoint, middle
I
or
mean, I think we're sort of far from that, right? Like, do you think it hit crisis level to where there will be an awakening, where it's like actual class awakening, where outside of race, something that transcends racial boundaries, that they realize that the working poor and the working class are getting shafted?
could you
Hello?
could you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, like what I mean, I don't feel like we've reached sort of that crisis point where all these people are going to come together, despite regardless of race and anything, and just come together because they they feel a unified sort of like a fight against either the wealthy or the forces that allow these wealthy people to amass their wealth.
You saying with having a massive wealth?
Like, well, I mean, I guess I'm saying, like, I don't, do you feel like we're close, even close to that sort of that point, to that the point of crisis point, where all the races, like a group of people, not everybody, but like a vast majority of people, regardless of race, will sort of realize, I guess, become class conscious and realize that they're all in the same class, and that there's a class war happening, because that's the reality. The
I
real
mean,
reality is there's a class war, and then this race war is, I believe, is a manufactured uh, item to be made up, because yeah, there's some races still out there, but the general consensus in society is, if you're a racist, nobody wants to deal with you. It's a fade out culture. It's a, you have to hide it in the shadows. You know what I mean? And so,
and I
yeah.
and I think that's what would make people choose sides and go with um and then want to involve themselves with like, well, I'm running with this class of people, or I'm running with this class of people, because they'll see it from a standpoint of like, okay, I really want to have myself separated from that. Like, it's just like marking yourself safe, where you like, I'm not involved with that. I'm really running with you, and like, I really stand for the same thing you stand for. Because if a person doesn't exclude themselves from that, it'll be just, like, you know, you'll be saying to yourself, like, okay, something could happen to me just because somebody think that I'm with this person because of the color of my skin and things like that. And everybody just not like that. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you have these people who are not like who don't stand for those type of things. Whether it be police killings or whether it be unjustful incarceration. Are those FEMA camps and stuff like that. You have a lot of people, in different races other than black and things like that, who really who are really not with those type of things. So, you know, I mean that would be one of the big reasons I see people actually, separate themselves just because they don't want to get caught in the middle of those type of things. But when it being a war like that, I mean, it'd be hard to stop a lot of stuff. So it's just dealing with that situation, man. It'll just be total chaos. I mean, it would be no like you would never know, how things would turn out because you don't know how so many people are feeling.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a lot of pressure out there in society. People want to change and they're getting frustrated. And for it looks like we have one person on from YouTube. We're talking about if there were to be a civil war, what are some of the realities of that civil war? And I don't think I still. By the way, so to that YouTube watcher, jump in and tell us what you think the realities of the Civil War would be. One thing I'm particularly interested in is where will the division be? Will it be really a very, very stark ideological division that's very visible, or what will that be like? And Bo, I don't think I really got to pin you down on that. Where do you think like if there was this war going on, where's the dividing line? Who's fighting who in this scenario? Is it like white supremacists? Do you think that it would be something like that? And then everyone against the white supremacist people? Or do you think it'll be something like, do you think it'll be like a socialist revolution where
Yeah,
a big group of people
it's
want to
just
move to
hard to say.
socialism, and then there's people that are anti-socialism? And
It's hard to say because you got so much racism out there. I mean, as far as not really just racism, it's just like you got so much hate out there. It's kind of hard to say. Like you actually have to have people, like have they really, got themselves to the point of being conscious and like saying, okay, I don't need to be fighting with you and you stay right next door to me for literally nothing. Like am I really, standing up to the big issue? Like I mean, if it's not like that, it's kind of hard to say because you'll have it. Well, like I say, you can have people canceling each other out just for resources. Then they could come to the conclusion and say, okay, well, he's literally got what I got. If I really need the resources, I need to be going here. Like that's the big difference. Like would that person really understand?
you're talking
You know,
about like almost where it's like an apocalyptic scenario where people don't have supplies, people can't survive, kind of thing. At that
yeah.
point,
I mean, yeah. And then you're seeing it from like a standpoint of saying, okay, put it like this: if me and you are on the same level, right? Like we pretty much have all the same things,
mm,
and I'm trying to get better things. Why would I come and have these problems with you when me and you have the same stuff? The only way I'm going to get different or better stuff that I need, I would have to go, you know, beyond you because me and you are on the same level. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, but along the way, there might be some guys that just think you're on the other team. Like, because there's going to be normal guys like us that are fighting against whatever team we're like. I'm pretty sure we're going to be on the same team. The question becomes, who are these other people, and what is that other team? You know what I mean? Is it? Or you think? Do you think by the time it comes to any type of war, it's going to be people who are on the side of the rich versus people who are on the working class side of things? Or like, do you think that's how it's going to break down?
I
Or do
mean,
you
it
think it's
could,
going to be
you know.
like these conservative Republican kind of people versus like everyone else? Or because I think it's
Well,
an ideological thing and not so much a class thing.
well, I mean, I think they're going to be like, I mean, they're going to stand together regardless. I mean, they could, but then in the face of something like that actually come into play, they really could, you know really could like break apart from each other, because when you're actually going through something like that, you actually seeing this person, you like, this person is, just as cutthroat as I am, they could really cancel each other out in certain ways. I think they'll, try their best to stick together and things like that. But, like when you have so many people who are just greedy, you know, they usually kind of, cancel each other out. Like they had a list out where it was saying like mass shootings of just this year. I think I seen a post that said the USA was at
Like 250 or something.
they was at like
Now,
292 or something like that.
damn.
I mean, I'm not knowing what they're actually considering as far as a mass shooting. I'm pretty sure they have a certain criteria of what they consider it to be,
Yeah, I think it's more
and
than
then you can
50. I
add
think
the
it's
rest of
four or
those
more.
countries together, and they're not even, 1/10 of that. So that right there lets you know that it's a war amongst the people. Consider it saying like, like, I mean, that's really the biggest thing. It's a war amongst the people. So if it came out to be like a civil war or something like that, you just don't know if people would, you know, if, like I say, are you trying to take from your brother, or are you trying to, go and get some other stuff, or, like, are you really going that, this person who's considered to be the real problem. That's kind of the big thing. Like, you never know what you're gonna, with people, you never know.
Do you think it would happen? Do you think it's going to happen? Like, in, like, really ever? Do you think it's going to happen that Americans will be fighting each other again?
I mean, we do that now, so it's like, it's not too far fetched saying that it wouldn't happen.
Like, well, where are we? Where are we really doing? Where's the real fight happening?
Um, I mean, it's really, like I said, when you look at it from like a mass shooting standpoint, like you have people getting killed, by the same race of people, but now if you're looking at it from a standpoint of, surroundings, I mean, like people, killed in like, mostly in like their surroundings, things like that. So that's whether white people killing white people, black people, killing black people, things like that, but as far as, you look at it from a standpoint like that, you have a lot of white people killing black people, you know, then you got a lot of, Mexican people who've died too. Like you have like different races of people. Like I don't know like the exact numbers and things like that, but you look at it from like a media standpoint, because like I say, you've had so many police killings, so I mean, I haven't heard about police killing a lot of white people. They kill like different ethnic backgrounds of people. So that's kind of it kind of really explains itself.
Hmm.
So it's just more of a like I mean but like you just never know how people will be. You know.
What do you think about folks that are out there sort of trying to downplay the recent mass shootings and trying to downplay it by saying, well, what about gang violence in Chicago, or other inner city violence, or like even in Jacksonville, there's been like 90 shootings or something this year. So like, what do you say to those people that try to deflect in that way from what's going on?
Um, I mean,
Or do you
as
think there's
far,
not enough
I
attention
mean,
brought, not enough of the right attention brought to the inner city violence, if you want to call it that, I guess.
I say, as far as it happening, a lot of that stuff, got to be, closely linked to me. I would think,
Hmm.
because if it's a lot going on in the inner city like that, I mean, but the biggest thing is, it's a lot of different reasons. A lot of that stuff happen, and you have so many things that play a part in it, drugs and things like that. That's just like saying, how did the drugs get into the community, and then you have communities with, lack of funds and,
How do
you
the
know,
drugs get into the communities?
things like that going on. So, like I said, you have people like who are around each other who are in the same, area of these, poverty areas, and you have people doing things. I mean, poverty areas, and then you have, like, people really killing their surroundings. Same thing with, people in middle class. Like it's just, you have so many guns. Then you have crazy laws behind the guns. You have people with guns who don't know how to use guns. A lot of those killings could be, guns going off because a person didn't know how to use it. Now you have somebody dead, and it's a lot of different things, man. Just
Do you think?
the gun control is just
What do you
out of
think?
whack because you got young people with guns who don't even have permits, who don't know how to use them, but they feel empowered by having them,
Do you
you
think
know.
that there's? I mean, it's probably already illegal for those guys to have those guns, right?
Definitely. I mean, as far as when you have people who actually handling guns who don't know how to use them, and then you have people who have, all kind of anger issues and disabilities and things like that, for them to have a gun, you know, you could have somebody, killed just out of fear or things like that.
Right. Well, how do you keep those folks from getting a gun if it's already illegal for them to get a gun? How do you like what do you do? Create a new law? I mean, they already don't care about the law. So what are they going to do? Or what's the law going to do? Like how would you stop these things from how do you stop these folks from getting those guns?
That's something I've really been thinking about. It's just more of a, I mean, you definitely got to have more gun control. I feel like, you know. But then you have so many things to think about it coming up. You like, how did all these guns even get here in the first place? How you even able to get hold to a lot of these guns? I mean, it's kind of the same way you'll say about drugs. Like, how did drugs get here? What I'm saying? How did they get here anyway? You know what I'm saying? How is it flooded in this area anyway? The same thing with, you know, opioids. Like, okay, you got some people who just abusing their subscription, but I mean their prescription. But other than that, how did they, where all the other drugs coming from? How is it so plentiful? Things like that. Same thing with guns. Like, okay, we got some legal. I mean, we got a lot of legal guns out here, but how did they get here in the first place? So it's more of a that. We have to have that we need more gun control with like reform, and then you just we have to get to the nick of the problem and actually see you know where's this stuff coming from.
So like somebody's out there illegally supplying guns to these folks because somehow, some way, they're getting access to these guns.
Definitely, I mean it could be definitely. I'm not. It's a. I mean, it just like like I said, it's the same thing with drugs. Like how all these drugs get.
You know what's weird is back in the day, after the Columbine shootings in Colorado, um, Michael Moore did a documentary called Bowling for Columbine. And one of the things that he points out was, I think it's Switzerland and Canada have pretty close or high, even higher guns per capita. So the number of guns per person in the country. But yet their gun deaths and gun violence is extremely low. What do you think? Do you think that culture has what kind of impact do you think culture has as far as gun violence in America? And because we're not the only ones with guns within the populace, so we've got other countries with lots of guns too, but they don't have the same outbursts of violence that we have here. What do you think?
I mean, you have. I mean, you could say that a lot of it's not displayed the way that we actually see it. I mean, because like you just put it like this: when we look at the news, like we see a lot of negative stuff. Even with it being like local news and things like that. It's a lot of positive stuff that's actually going on that we don't get a big whiff of. But as far as you know, um, as far as with those different countries, they have a lot of stricter laws. They're not able to do certain stuff that people here can do, with as far as like guns and things like that, so it's kind of hard to say. Like, I don't really know their laws and things like that, but
As far as those other countries?
yeah, here, it's just like I say, like, the biggest thing is like actually seeing like, where this person got this stuff from, and how was this person brought up, and
Hmm.
things like that, that kind of play a part into that, because when you look at the people who have those things, man, like I say, you have to try to get to the root of those things to actually see what's going on.
But even then, like, how do you? Because you can't. Who's gonna be the judge over who can or can't buy a gun at some point?
That's the
Who's
hard
gonna
part,
call
bro.
make
That's
those
the part.
call those
That's the
shots?
hard part that you know. Once you start making all of these guns, and then so many people got them, and so many. I mean, because you got to think about it. People buy stuff, and you have people who get robbed and things like that. And you got stolen guns, and you got guns that's passed down, and I mean that's and then we ain't even talking about illegal and stuff like that. I mean, not saying they're not illegal, but we just talking about things that could happen to have people who actually have guns and things like that.
Right.
So, so it's and then when you have so many out there, you have people who actually make guns and stuff like that. Like people who could literally put a gun together, you know, like to literally make their own gun, bullets and all. So
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's
even 3D printed guns now. You can
exactly. So it's
download a
just a
file
thin.
and just print yourself a gun.
Yeah, so it's thin. It's a very, very thin line to where like all this, like how you can put control over something that's done got so big.
Do you think it's going to get better before it gets worse, or do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
I mean, I always, pray for better days. I mean, like it's just like we have good days and we have bad days. Then you'll see like a little turnaround or something like that, and then you'll see like this big thing. You like, damn, okay, this just happened. Damn, it's crazy. So I mean, it's just you know, when you're around positive people, I mean, you always think. I mean, I just feel like you're gonna think positive. So I think positive because I'm around positive people. Yeah, when you have loved ones and kids and things like that, you wanna, see positive results and things like that, but you still have to, you know, like I say, be conscious and, stay aware of things, so I mean, but I'm hoping, that we have, you know, better days, stuff going on.
Do you think that at some point that do you think the people will sort of unify together on their own out of crisis, or do you think that someone out there will emerge as sort of a unifying persona that will bring Americans back together again?
I mean, only
Not even
time.
again. I don't even want to say again because I think America's always been fractured since the beginning. I mean, do you think someone out there could usher in a new America of opportunity and fairness and equality, out there that could sort of sell that idea, or do you think racism's just too strong?
I mean, really, only time could tell. I mean, racism is strong. It's been like that for decades and decades, but really, I feel like only time could tell because you know with this new generation of people, like we have kids that's say about the kids who are like 9 to 10 years old right now. I mean, you never know what you could get out of that. You know,
Right.
you never know what you could get out of the next generation that's coming up. It could be like a big generational shift where like certain stuff that was important is not important no more. I mean, it's kind of been like that now. Like from a time, even when you was coming up, I bet I'm pretty sure you could see, differences now, and like religion and how people deal with each other and things like that. So, you know, who's to say 10 years from now or 15 years from now?
Well, I mean, I thought when I was in high school, when I in the '90s, I thought all the fights had been fought. I thought equality, racial equality, women's equality, all that had already been sort of won by someone else, and it wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, that's how it felt in the '90s to me. But obviously, there was still racism going on, and there's still stuff going on. But now I feel like things have become more heated and people, so I mean, at the same time, so you mentioned the 10-year-olds and whatever right now, but some of those 10-year-olds now are being exposed to the like this flagrant sort of the racism, and well, I mean, maybe even not blatant racism, just sort of the notion that that it's okay to be that way, to be openly like hostile towards immigrants or towards a certain group of people, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Do you think they're going to be affected and emboldened, and then some 10-year-old sees that and grows up to be the next like monster or something, you know?
I mean, it definitely could, but then again, you know, it's different when you're dealing with millennials. Like, I mean, you never know.
Mhm. Like, what
I
do
mean,
you?
it's kind of like saying, you know, I'm gonna put this in this box and put this in this box, and you know, you got people go to the box to grab to grab the stuff, you know, that got the name on the front of the box, and then they go in the box and it's something totally different.
Hmm.
You know, you could say misleading, you could say, but then you can have a person say, "Oh, I ran out of boxes, so I used this box." You know, so it's just different. You know,
Hmm.
I think we'll see a difference with this next generation coming up in so many different ways. You know, so it's you just want to have it to a point where you know having these people mesh with each other.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things missing.
One of the biggest things missing is people messing with each other.
Meshing with each other. Yeah,
Oh,
I just
meshing,
don't. I'm
meshing
just
together.
you know.
But I mean, I think there's always been a history of racism in the country that we're still trying to overcome. To this day, there's still echoes of it in our society. I think there's a bunch of white people out there that want to pretend it's not happening instead of just realize, like, because they feel associated with it. Maybe, I guess they don't. They just want to say it's not happening. That way, they can't be implicated. But like, I don't see why. I don't know. Like, I start to realize that whiteness is a more of a mindset than anything. Like, as soon as I'm critical of white people, I'm suddenly not white, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Before I was critical of white people, I'm white. But if I'm critical of white people, then I'm not white. I must be something else. And that was something interesting that I realized over time. But I mean, I think you're right. I mean, we don't know how the new generations looking at these forces that are out there and how they're digesting it. But I mean, it's also, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, there's all these white supremacists are having kids and they're teaching their kids their white supremacist ways, you know, and they're out there, and some of that population is growing, and some of it's how do you awaken these people and get them away from going down those paths? Everybody's wanting to create their own identity and be special, you know. And I think in some ways this is some of the white kids and some white people, this is their identity and their way to be special, you know, for them to have struggle. Because for some reason, when people want to be joined together in struggle, you know.
Definitely.
But how do you end that? How do you say, look, it's not a struggle, you know? The sooner we can amend for the shitty racism that we've had in America, and the sooner we face that, the sooner we can stop talking about it. I think they don't realize that. But I don't know. So they're still out there, still popping out their kids with those ideologies, and hopefully, like my dad was racist when I was. Well, he probably still is, but when I was a kid, and I'm very far from that. Like even though, despite him trying to raise me that way, I strayed far from the tree. So the apple tree was on a hill, and I rolled pretty far away from that tree. So, that's a little bit different. It gives me hope that there's other situations like mine where it doesn't matter if you grew up with racist family, you could still pop out the other end and see past that. But I also see people falling into that at the same time. But I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens, and on all that. But it's been good having you on the show. What are some? Do you have any parting thoughts as we wrap up the show? Bo, you still on there? Hello? I think we lost him. All right, so it looks like Mark might still be with us. He's probably working on something. He mentioned something, by the way. He had a comment saying, couldn't we use the breakup of the USSR as an example of what could happen in the U.S.? And I responded that could be scary because basically, from what I remember, the USSR went belly up and then everything went on sale. And basically, whoever had the money bought the influence, and the whole government belongs to the people with money, basically. So, yeah, that would happen. I mean, that's sort of happening here. And if that's what happens after the revolution or the Civil War, then we're gonna be fucked. I think. I'm pretty sure we're gonna be fucked. But I want to thank everyone for joining today on the Boyd podcast. And Bo, if you're back, I want to thank you for joining on. Are you back? Hello? Bo, if you can hear me, I can't hear you. So it's been a pleasure having you on the show. If you want to be on the show, please make sure to get in touch with me and we can Skype you in. Or you can show up at the Swamp Studios or the Shop Studios in the swamps of Jacksonville, Florida, Duval. But it's been another episode of The Boyd, and I need to start putting my Patreon link on there. If some of you guys want to contribute to The Boyd, I want to start doing some things like maybe some book reading stuff and some lectures, or I don't know, whatever you guys want. So Patreon, jump on and tell me what you want, and I can be bought. So I do have a price. We can talk about it later. But Bo, you get back on? Hello? All right, so I think he's out. But I want to thank you all again, and this has been another episode of The Boyd.
That's less than stupid. Say a bomb that's less than stupid. Say a bomb that's less than stupid. Less than stupid. Stupid.